What does food mean to you? Culture, nourishment, happiness, or energy? Well, for some of us, it's something we consume in our daily routine. For others, it means equality, education, and social impact. Hi, welcome to Curious Monica by InnovatorsBox, where we study how different people thrive at different jobs. I'm your host, Monica Kang, and today I'm excited to dive into an industry that we live with every day but may not know a lot about behind the scenes. Food.
So we thought, why not make it more global? Why not have refugees from all over the world also bring all those flavors that are so much better, when they're made by someone who really cares, by someone who knows what they should taste like.
You gotta love people. And you gotta be good at dealing with people, right? People always think I make Chinese food, even though it's Middle Eastern food, so they'll have that stereotype.
When you are the chef and the restaurant owner, the first thing you will learn is that the restaurant owner works 3-4 times more than the chef.
My overall dream for the next 5 years is to get really in touch and in tune with college students and trying to get kids who are young adults cooking probably for the first time in a healthy way.
Today, I'm excited to introduce you to 4 friends in 4 cities who work in food. And while this may be a coincidence, it turns out that none of them planned on being in the food industry from the start.
I'm a complete newcomer to the food industry. I've been in this industry for the past 5 years. We launched Eat Off Meat in 2015, actually. So it's been about 5 years or close to 6 years now that I'm in this field. But prior to working in food, the closest I had gotten to food was a failed attempt at waitressing back home, back in Lebanon. I'm originally from Lebanon.
That's my friend Manal Kahli, co-founder of Eat Off Beat, a food company in New York City that delivers authentic meals and food products that are entirely conceived, prepared, and delivered by refugees who reside in the city. The idea of Eat Off Beat came to life in 2013 when she realized 2 problems.
So I land here in New York, graduate student, very much into international environmental affairs. But then I get disappointed with hummus in grocery stores. Coming from Lebanon, very high standards with hummus.
This was a very difficult time for many, as millions had to flee the country, and Manal quickly realized that she may be able to translate her hunger for hummus into something bigger.
We kind of started assessing the market. We figured out that there was a market, it was very competitive. So we thought, why not make it more global? Why not have refugees from all over the world also bring all those flavors that are so much better, when they're made by someone who really cares, by someone who knows what they should taste like, and who really wants to share that with New York initially, now hopefully with all of the US.
And their impact is incredible. 25 refugees work as catering chefs producing traditional dishes from their home countries like Syria, Sri Lanka, Iran, Afghanistan, Senegal, Venezuela, and Iraq. They serve customers like Kickstarter's Estée Lauder, Google, United Nations, and even the famous Hamilton musical staff.
Lin-Manuel Miranda's production company, and that's kind of how we landed. We got to know the entire team. Everyone has been so wonderful to work with. They've always been supportive, especially now.
And support from others is coming because she has put in the care and the work to provide for both her customers, as well as her refugee cooks, who haven't necessarily been welcomed during the Trump administration. Food, as a result, is so much more to Manal and her team than nourishment. It's an opportunity to redefine a relationship and shape how people think of one another. She isn't the only one who didn't let the no experience in the kitchen stop her from finding purpose in food.
I had no experience in food before. Never washed a dish in my life. Never waited a table or did any of those things. I didn't even know how to cut vegetables or anything. I still don't, actually.
Meet my friend Ian So, co-founder and co-owner of Chicken and Rice Guys, a popular Middle Eastern food truck started in Boston that has been recognized as one of the fastest growing companies in Massachusetts. With multiple locations in the United States, The foundation of his business is focused around charity and youth development. And it all started in October of 2011.
I did it because I wanted to start a business. And food was one of those things that I felt that I could do based on my skill set. Back then, everyone was like starting apps or technology companies, and I had no skill or appetite to do coding. I do know how to eat food, and I do know what good food tastes like.
This start is truly humbling. For 10 years later today, he now has over 6 food trucks, 4 locations, employs of 34 people, 75 pre-COVID, and serves about 700 customers a day, and over 1,000 before COVID. And furthermore, as he built the foundation to give back to the community, they provide programming, events, services to empower high school youth, college students, and also even blood donation. I asked him what things he wished he knew before he got into the food business.
I don't know. It's like jumping into a pool. You know, you don't want to know how cold the water is. Sometimes you just jump. So in some ways, it's good not to know. But that experience is great, right? And sometimes you jump in the pool and it's cold, but you love to be in the pool. You love swimming and you're happy, your body warms up. And that's kind of how I feel. A lot of people just see the surface. It's like an iceberg. There's probably another hour of paperwork later, right? So, you know, the amount of work we put in, you see the tip of what we do and you experience and taste that, the tip of the iceberg, but really there's all this work that goes on underneath.
Paperwork is real. Food Truck Nation says for a new owner to open and operate a food truck, you have to complete about 45 government-mandated permits and license to be legally allowed to operate, the processing of which can take up to 35 days. And the cost for these permits can be up to $28,000 in the United States. But this is a growing industry. In 2020, IBIS World reported that over 23,873 food trucks are active and employ about 28,916 employees in the United States. While this stat may have changed with the pandemic, food trucks are still a fast-growing business, but also a space that needs a lot of care. What's one thing you'll say you should be really good at to be a successful food truck business owner?
I mentioned the hard work, but the second thing is you got to love people and you got to be good at dealing with people.
What do you mean?
The first side is the customer side, right? That's the one we're all familiar with. And we've had some difficult customers throughout the years. And, you know, customers always right. But a lot of times people always think I make Chinese food, even though it's Middle Eastern food. So they'll have that stereotype. They're right on that on our Yelp, you know. And then on the people side, oh my goodness, it's a headache and a half. We manage 70 to 100 people based on the season, you know, and everybody has their issues. And if you don't really genuinely care about them, they're not going to genuinely care about you.
Caring with earnesty. That's what drives Ian. The growth you see is just a reflection of all his hard work. And he isn't the only one who speaks of how having a clear mission beyond simply making good food or making money makes a difference in what and how you do. Meet Chef Eliza Martin in San Diego.
I definitely didn't mean to stumble into the culinary world the way I did. Food's always been really important for me growing up. It was kind of, like I said, a love language that my family all shared. Coming around a table was really important.
Eliza Martin is the Director of Education at the Culinary Artisans and is on the mission to bring food education to life for adults and children. She has spent over a decade working in restaurants in New York, Chicago, and San Francisco as one of the few female executive chefs. In doing so, she deepened her passion for tackling food literacy, the understanding of the impact of our food choices on our health, environment, and the economy. The 2020 Food Network Top Champion has received numerous awards and recognition for her work, and loves to introduce herself as this chef entertainer for a reason.
I thought I was going to be an actress, so I moved to New York pretty fast. I was working as a bartender and I started sneaking into the kitchen and asking the cooks there to just start teaching me. And I started to realize that it was something I really wanted to pursue. I put together a very funny Food Network proposal that I submitted to a reality show, like Talent Scout.
What happened?
He said, "This is all great that you want to like teach people how to cook, but like, shouldn't you know how to cook?" And I agreed. So I actually just kind of dove headfirst into culinary school. Anytime I was offered a job, I said yes. I just wanted to learn.
Perhaps because of this journey, she has become passionate about how we rethink the value of food.
One of the missing pieces in our education system is our food knowledge. And we leave school knowing how to use calculus, but not knowing how to make dinner. Like that's a little bit goofy.
True. I'm certainly guilty of this. I used to eat out all the time, and till the pandemic, my kitchen was a storage space as I barely used it. Now, I've been learning how to make use of my kitchen for actual cooking. Eliza argues why this is so important for us all as she fights for food literacy. All to understand how eating healthy, good meals are important and possible.
If chefs don't teach the next generation how to cook, I don't know who's going to. So it's really important to me that chefs of all walks are sharing this knowledge. Like I don't have secret recipes. I'm not good at keeping those. I used to get in trouble at my restaurant because I would give out recipes for some of our like dishes.
What, really?
We would have customers who would email. I just tell them how to make it. Food shouldn't be a secret. It's something we deal with 6 times a day. You know, I really just want us all as a country to kind of like get back in touch with it.
Yes! Good food should be accessible to all. Not just a one-time thing that you experience at an expensive restaurant. And I'm so grateful that there are more chefs working on this mission. Meet Chef Diego Rhoger in Brazil.
As a chef, I always try to make them accessible because I think food brings us together and connects us as people.
Diego Rhoger loves to ignite people. He is the founder and chef at Cocina Jovina, a restaurant serving Brazilian and Mediterranean cuisines. He is also the founder of startup Z-Tech, a VC firm that helps entrepreneurs in Brazil make their ideas come to life. But even for him, getting into the culinary world wasn't a straightforward path.
Actually, I was a lawyer before I became a chef.
What, really?
I started as a lawyer and I didn't like it that much. And I was falling apart as a human being. And I started to rethink myself as a professional, as a student.
So what did you do?
I tried a lot of things. I tried coding. I tried to make computer programs. I always loved them, but it wasn't my thing. Later on, I went to culinary school. I loved it. I got hyper excited.
That's incredible. Still, I'm sure that path wasn't so easy. What are the things that you wish others understood about the work you do?
Restaurant business is really, really different than cooking.
How come?
Restaurants create an experience. The sound, the environment, the decoration. When you are the chef and the restaurant owner, the first thing you will learn is that the restaurant owner works 3-4 times more than a chef.
As an entrepreneur myself, I totally get this feeling and this reality. I'm often buried with a mix of client delivery, content development, people management, and more paperwork.
As a restaurant owner, I have so many other things to worry every day. Here in Brazil, we have a saying, every day we kill a lion. Because every day we have a huge problem as a lion, you know? But the problem is not the lion. The problem is if we do not kill a lion today, tomorrow we have 2 lions to kill. The restaurant business industry is highly competitive, and I learned that only losing my first restaurant.
What happened?
I was a really good chef, a really good cook, a really creative cook, but as a restaurant owner, I was just beginning. I didn't know how to manage all the aspects. I didn't know how to create and engage all the experience I needed to keep up with the chef part.
And grow he did. I asked him how he feels about the pandemic, especially since in-person dining was hit heavily. You may have heard him bring this up in my other podcast, Your Workplace. As customers changed how they eat, restaurants changed how they serve.
We have to look at things into the perspective of the user. For the user, it got easier to eat at home, and this won't change. So they were obliged to stay at home. But I don't see they cooking at home every day because they were used to go to the restaurant. Now the restaurants have to go to them.
This is indeed why Manal from Eat Off Beat in New York transformed her catering business into a new food delivery business.
Come COVID, March 2020, we got 100% cancellation of all of our revenue streams, basically catering, within the matter of a couple of days. So within a week, we had to completely reinvent our business or just shutter and go.
So what did you do?
Within a week, we took our best sellers from catering, repackaged them, repurposed them, put them in a box, and we started delivering those boxes directly to our customers' homes versus delivering them as catering set up to their office. Everything, the whole mechanism changes. Delivery infrastructure, the system, the communication channels, the marketing, the sales, everything changes. Even the way we cook, right? The process in cooking. But the team has been such an incredible, adaptable, resilient team that we made it happen.
And indeed, I've bought a few boxes myself, and honestly, as a non-New York resident, I'm super pumped now that her food is available outside of New York.
In New York City, we only deliver meals that are fully prepared, fully fresh prepared meals. We've added a new offering that's long shelf life products like jams, snacks, cookies that we now ship all over the US. So that's another thing that we innovated with in a way, right, to serve even a larger market.
As you can imagine, Manal isn't the only one who had to reinvent how she serves her audience. Eliza Martin has been teaching cooking virtually. While a lot of elements are different, she shares how her motivation to empower them still translates across the screen.
I, of course, take for granted the fact that I have a full decade under my belt of practicing with food and playing with food and like being able to break it down for folks and explain how you can organize your palate and like get flavors that you like is awesome. It's empowering, and it's something that watching folks who go into these virtual classes, especially with a lot of doubts, and coming out on the other side completely surprised at how beautiful they can cook is kind of awesome. That's the magic, and that's kind of been my liquid courage for them.
Her love for food truly makes others feel at ease. This is why I partnered up with Eliza to talk about leadership and food lessons at our new show at InnovatorsBox, Innovators Kitchen. Look us up on YouTube and social media. Our first episode came out in March. That being said, it would be remiss for me to ignore one of the other big challenges in the culinary world: diversity. Unfortunately, this is still a very male-dominant industry. Today, she is one of the few female executive chefs in the United States. In 2017, a documentary, A Fine Line, shares how fewer than 7% of head chefs and restaurant owners were women. I asked her how she continues to stay confident.
It might be hard, but as a woman, you have just as much of an opportunity to kind of seize the day and make it your own. Of course, there's going to be hurdles, and of course, there's going to be people who perhaps aren't as receptive. I felt that multiple times firsthand when I was leading kitchens, either as a sous chef or executive chef, being not only a young white female, like I had all these different kind of pieces that were sort of different. I think it takes a lot of kind of knowing yourself and knowing what your gifts are. And my gift was never one of being the loudest mouth in the room or being the most stoic leader. My gift was nurturing, and my gift was caring, and my gift was being able to work harder than anybody else on the clock. So when I could use those, that's what developed my team. And so like that was how I would inspire my team.
Your self-awareness is so important. What helped you understand your voice, Eliza?
I remember my very first restaurant in New York. I had an amazing head chef who took me under her wing, but she had a temper and she would freak out at some of the servers, like firing people on the spot. And I just knew that was never a mentality that I would be able to get into. The first step in gaining confidence is definitely knowing yourself. And when you can kind of take pride in pieces of that, that's where confidence starts to blossom. So like finding the pieces of you that you like best and then just using them. If food is my love language, then I'm gonna be loving it like when I'm making food. So like so just trying to find those pieces of you that you really enjoy and nurturing them and then leaning on them.
She isn't the only one who shares how the lack of diversity influenced her and how she felt comfortable showing up in her voice.
I do get silly every now and then. I do enjoy that. And sometimes, especially in the very beginning, I worried a bit about that giving a negative impact to the team and maybe they will take me less seriously. But that's one thing I learned is actually, being yourself and being comfortable does not necessarily have to mean you're not serious about what you're doing.
Tell me more, Manal. What helped you realize this nuance?
And I remember we were in a team meeting. Can't remember what happened, but I made some sort of a joke and it kind of ran around the room. And then Sarujan heard and was like, who said that? Who said that? I wanted to know who made that joke. And someone told him, oh, Manal said that. And he looked at me and said, whoa, Manal made that joke? And he was surprised. And that surprised me in a way. So that it was a realization to me that I had actually tried to be a bit, or at least show an image of someone who's more serious. And I feel that's something I'm trying to get rid of right now.
Finding your voice. Oh, how often we have edited ourselves out of fear that this is not how it's done. I resonated so much with what both Manal and Eliza shared as I reflected on how I felt during the early days in my career. Not seeing enough Asian, female, or non-traditional backgrounds in both nuclear weapon security and innovation initially made me worry that I wasn't the right fit for this field. It wasn't until I stepped fully into believing in my voice and being in my voice that I realized I can be myself without letting the narratives of what others think I should be to define me. Constant self-reflection and learning is so critical, no matter what industry you are in. Diego also shares this sentiment.
I did a challenge about 5 years ago that I began with reading a book a week. Okay. So I started reading a book a week. This year is the third year that I'm reading 3 books a week. I wake up 4 a.m. every day and I only sleep about 4 to 5 hours a day. So I'm really, I'm like a robot with my schedule. In the morning is my learning process. I meditate 1 hour, then I read 2 hours, then I go into a course or into any learning that I need to do. So I'm always on a course.
And it's important to continue learning because, as Ian shares, you may find key inspirations for how you build your team.
I learned early on to empower my people to help me make those decisions. And I learned that from Howard Schultz, the CEO of Starbucks, in his book, Pour Your Heart Into It. Basically, he designates decision-making all the way down to the lowest employee. So if they want to make a suggestion, they can send in a suggestion into the suggestion box that will go to Howard Schultz, and he may or may not implement it. One of those ideas was the Frappuccino. That came from a staff level person. And that went on to make Starbucks billions of dollars.
But don't forget, at the end of the day, as Manal reminds us, people really matter.
Empathy. And I think really it helps me in the way I lead today, but I try to keep that as kind of my North Star. And the reason why I believe that is, I really try to be in the shoes of every single one of our team member in their function, in their day-to-day, role or job. Very often I try to the extent possible to do that job myself, right? I go on deliveries myself every now and then. I answer the phone myself every now and then. And that helps me not only empathize with team members, make sure that they are comfortable in what they do, but also in a way, it helps the business be better because It also helps me discover, what are pain points that we can solve to make them feel more comfortable, but in a way that makes our customers feel more comfortable or receive our product better in a way, right? And then I get to be involved in that. So I think definitely empathy.
I asked if they would still work in food, knowing what they know now about all the hard work and challenges they face every day. Their answers made me smile.
When you said that I've been in it for a decade, I'm like, no, Monica, that's not right. And then I did the math. I was like, oh man, it's actually coming up on 9 years. But, I love the industry. I love elements of it, and I wouldn't change it. Starting a food business is a great business to start as an entrepreneur. It's something anyone can do.
I would say, why not? Do it. That has been my philosophy since we started. It's always been like, why not? Just start getting comfortable with uncertainty. Know that it's not going to go the way you planned it, but that's totally fine.
Food represents so much stuff into our lives that I think it's a right. It's a civil right. It's a living right from us as human beings to be able to eat great food. And this always guided me as a chef.
Our concept of food, I think, is going to dramatically change. I'm hopeful that our ability to work with our hands is starting to transform too, and that hopefully people who are at home might have a more wide breadth of knowledge of how to cook for themselves and cook for themselves healthfully. I think that was like the scary part when we got into COVID. Everybody had this like moment of like, oh my God, I've eaten so much like fried food this week, or like, we didn't know where to turn. So I think in the coming years, we're going to see a big trend, hopefully towards healthy food, healthy eating, how to make it freaking delicious, but also hopefully more people coming out of this with a little bit more, just being a little bit more in tune with their hands and their kitchens.
Indeed. And my hope is that this episode has opened up your eyes to how you think about your relationship with food and those who work in the food industry. Food is something we all spend time on every day, yet it's something we may not think frequently about in depth. So I ask you again, what does food mean to you? Nourishment, culture, happiness, energy, or more? I hope the stories from Eliza Martin, Manal Kahli, Diego Rhoger, and Ian Saw gave you new insights to reflect upon. And don't forget, find us to learn more about food and leadership and Innovators Kitchen on our YouTube and social media channels at InnovatorsBox. I'm looking forward to reflecting on food education and literacy, for instance, as I bite into my next meal each day. Next week, I'm excited to dive into another industry that has been growing but often has been misunderstood: coaches. Curious to learn more? Join me next week at our next Curious Monica episode.
Hello there, I'm Luke Helder, the head composer at InnovatorsBox, and I hope you're enjoying Curious Monica. I'm obsessed with art and the power it has to convey meaning and emotion, and I also really like tea. This show is brought together by our awesome team: producer Seren O, audio engineers Sam Lermut and Ravi Lad, Kelly Gravo on marketing, website designer Akriti Pandey, graphic designer Monica Escobar, and me on music. And of course, this show is hosted and directed by the curious woman herself, Monica Kang, founder and CEO at InnovatorsBox. To continue the curiosity and creativity of the workplace, visit us at innovatorsbox.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share. We would love to hear what you are curious about and what secrets Monica could uncover in future episodes. See you next week.
This is your host, Monica Kang at InnovatorsBox. I'll see you soon again.